Hey everyone, so this is a video on rhetorical devices, logical fallacies, and how to improve your argument. It's a short explanation of methods which you can use to strengthen your arguments. This is mostly in relation to a high school paper, some sort of persuasive piece, or perhaps a speech that you're going to give. I'm going to talk about 3 rhetorical devices that are very useful. One logical fallacy that pops up all the time, especially in student papers, which you should try and avoid. And we're going to do this by looking at several commercials. The commercials I pulled off YouTube. I'm hoping I'm not stepping on any copyright rules. This is all for the purpose of education. I'm not endorsing anything that's in the videos, so hopefully that'll clear anything up. So let's get started. Does anyone know who that guy is? He is one of the most famous orators of all time. And his name was Cicero. And he wrote, "How incredible it is that few men, using the abilities given to most men, have the power to interest, motivate, and persuade their fellow men." So let's talk about these devices. We're going to explore 3 rhetorical devices which you should use, and one logical fallacy that you should not use. So you should use the appeal to character. This is sometimes called ethos. The appeal to emotion. This is called pathos or pathos. And the appeal to reason. This is called logos. And you should not use a very common fallacy, the appeal to popular belief, argumentum ad populum. This pops up all the time in our culture, and we're going to look at some examples of it. So to start, let's watch this video, and I want you to think about what rhetorical strategies are being used.
I'm Dale Peterson, and I'm after the Republican nomination for Alabama Agriculture Commissioner. I've been a farmer, a businessman, a cop, a Marine during Vietnam. So listen up. Alabama Ag Commissioner is one of the most powerful positions in Alabama, responsible for $5 billion. Bet you didn't know that. You know why? Thugs and criminals. If they can keep you in the dark, they can do whatever they want with all that money. And they don't give a rip about Alabama. Here we are, losing 3 family farms a day. Illegals bust in by the thousands, and Alabama's unemployment's at an all-time high. And what are my opponents doing about it? Stealing yard signs in the dark of night from my supporters. Norman Grace brags on his Facebook page about receiving contributions from industries he would regulate. Bragging about receiving illegal money on Facebook. Who on earth would support such a dummy? And why? We're Republicans. We should be better than that. I'm Dale Peterson. I'll name names and take no prisoners. Give me the Republican nomination for Ag Commission, and let's show Alabama we mean business.
So let's talk about what you saw. I'm not really sure what Ag Commissioner is, but in this video, Mr. Peterson actually uses quite a lot of rhetorical devices. So though it seems like a very sort of homemade type of video, he's a pretty clever fellow in what he was able to do there. So the appeal to personal character or ethos. So what does he talk about? He establishes a connection with his audience by referencing his work in occupations which are honorable occupations. Being a farmer, a businessman, a cop, a Marine during Vietnam. So what he's trying to do there is build trust with the viewer by establishing that he is someone who can be trusted. And that's what ethos is. And there's one other prominent one. The appeal to emotion, pathos. He tries to access the fear he believes exists in voters. He appeals to their emotions, saying, here we are losing 3 family farms a day while illegals are bussed in by the thousands and Alabama's unemployment is at an all-time high. So pathos in this example is, you could say, anger or fear. And that's a very common use of pathos because fear and anger are very motivating. So if you can tap into people's whether it's anger or fear or whatever negative emotion, you can often persuade them using that. Anything else? There was actually a lot of things in that video, but these are the 2 main ones. Okay, we're going to look at one more video, and I want you to look at how the appeal to character, ethos, and the appeal to emotion, pathos, are used. As you watch this next video, think about how these rhetorical devices are being used differently than before.
1931 was not exactly a great year to start a business, but that's when Allstate opened its doors. And through the 12 recessions since, they've noticed that after the fears subside, a funny thing happens. People start enjoying the small things in life. home-cooked meal. Time with loved ones. Appreciating the things we do have, the things we can count on. It's back to basics. And the basics are good. Protect them. Put them in good hands.
Okay, so another clever commercial. What did you see? You saw the appeal to character, ethos. Allstate suggests that their longevity is representative of their good character. They mentioned that they opened during the Depression and they survived 12 recessions since then. So clearly they must have a good character to be able to survive that sort of adversity. What else? The appeal to emotion. This is slightly different than before. Unlike the previous example, Allstate appeals to hope, that is, positive emotions. They talk about enjoying the small things in life and getting back to basics and protecting your family with them. So in this case, they're appealing to hope and love, which are the other aspect of pathos. So it's not always a negative emotion you're appealing to. Sometimes it can be a positive, but ultimately it's the same rhetorical device. It's the appeal to emotion or pathos. So far, so good? Okay, what about the appeal to reason, which is logos? The appeal to reason is just that. It's an appeal to whatever makes the most sense. This is a very useful rhetorical device. When speakers, writers can neither establish credibility through their personal character, nor manipulate the emotions of their audience or their readers, they can always advance their argument by explaining why their position makes the most sense. So let's look at an example of that. As you watch this video, think about how an appeal to reason is being used.
Every year, Volvo subjects its cars to a race of doom, providing us with insight to help make our cars safer for you.
Okay, what did you see? Volvo appeals to reason. Every year, Volvo subjects its cars to a race of doom, providing us with insight to make our cars safer. So what does that mean? If Volvo spends so much time collecting data on how cars are affected in crashes, then it stands to reason that they're better able to engineer their cars for safety, right? So it's a direct causation. So they're not really using emotion, which is pathos. They're not using character, which is ethos. They're simply using logos. We spend a lot of time researching, therefore we're able to develop good cars. Sounds reasonable to me. What do you think? And lastly, argumentum ad populum, the appeal to popular belief. This pops up in our culture all the time, so much so that we use it quite often without even realizing it. So in this logical fallacy, the speaker-writer suggests that an idea is a good one simply because a large group of people believe that it is, and they don't base that on any sort of information. It's simply everybody else thinks it's a good idea, therefore it must be a good idea. So let's look at this video. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek video, but let's watch it and see if we can figure out how the appeal to popular belief is being used.
Another billionaire is broke. C. Montgomery Burns has lost his entire fortune, estimated at $3 billion.
Sorry, Coke.
So what did you see? And yeah, sorry, Coke, if I'm stepping on your copyright. But Coke is a great company, and The Simpsons is a great TV show. So, but what was going on there? First of all, Mr. Burns loses his fortune. He's unhappy. What makes him happy and why? I'm sure you can answer that. Everybody's drinking Coke, makes them feel better. Coke doesn't say anything about why their product is particularly good or that it's healthy or give any kind of reasons. It simply shows that everybody is having a good time when they're drinking Coke. So the thought is that you can have a good time if you drink Coke also. So that's argumentum ad populum. Everybody else is doing it, therefore it's a good idea. It's technically a logical fallacy, but it pops up. You'll see this in commercials all the time. So it's something to avoid in your arguments. If you can, at least if you're going to use it, at least be aware that you're using it, I would say. So let's end with a parting thought. Whoever does not study rhetoric will be a victim of it. And that's an ancient Greek wall inscription. Rhetoric is pervasive in our culture. It's all over the place. It's fine. You should use it yourself, but you should at least understand it so that no one can use it against you. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Persuasion is one of the most difficult things there is to do out there. But if you put an eye towards the classical approaches, ethos, pathos, logos, you will often do well. So thanks a lot.
Soapstone, using the context to convey meaning. Know these terms. Speaker. What voice is telling the story, reporting, and making an account of the event? What influence or point of view does this speaker present us with? Does this speaker hold a bias, in other words, a personal opinion or feeling that he or she wants to get across? Is there any information that may have an influence on the writing? Know the occasion. In other words, what's happening? What is the time and place of the piece, of the writing, or the speaking? What encouraged or prompted this writing? What situation was the author presented with? What was the context that prompted the writing of the text? Know the audience. To whom was the text directed? Think political parties, social classes, certain groups of people. Consider the language the speaker uses and reference to God, a particular nation, heaven or hell, anyone else? What clues are given to make you think this was or was not written to a particular audience? Know the purpose. Why was this particular text written? What does the author want readers to learn from it? What is his or her message? How does he or she convey the message? How is the text supposed to make readers feel? Know the subject. Know the syntax. Know the style. This is the general idea and or content or topic that's being written about. How has this subject been presented to readers? With allegory, symbolism, imagery, hyperbole, you get the idea. Know the tone. What is the speaker's attitude? Look at the use of diction, syntax, and imagery to infer the author's attitude. Is the author serious? Is the author humorous? Is the author satirical? Ironic? Angry? You get the idea. SOAP. Know this acronym. Number 1, speaker, occasion, and subject. Writer's credentials. Writer's first and last name in his or her type of text, title of text, strong verb. See list at the end of this handout, and the writer's subject. Know purpose. Writer's last name's purpose is to what the writer does in the text. Know the audience. He or she adopts an adjective describing the attitude or feeling conveyed by the writer, that is, the tone, in order to verb phrase describing what the writer wants readers to do or think in his or her intended audience. Here's an example, and you have read this particular short story. Novelist Amy Tan, in her narrative essay, Fish Cheeks, recounts an embarrassing incident when she was 14 years old. Tan's purpose is to convey the idea that at 14, she wasn't able to recognize the love her mother had for her or the sacrifices her mother made. She adopts a sentimental tone in order to appeal to similar feelings and experiences in her adult readers. Patrick Healy and Maggie Haberman, reporters for the New York Times, present a rhetorical analysis in their article, 95,000 Words, Many of Them Ominous, from Donald Trump's Tongue. The authors analyze the rhetorical devices used in every public utterance by Mr. Trump over the past week, in order to illustrate how Mr. Trump uses rhetoric to erode people's trust in facts, numbers, nuances, and other things in the news media. So, you will need to be able to do this when you analyze a piece of writing. Make an introduction using SOAPS or SOAPs. In the body of your writing, be able to write what is the primary appeal used by the author. In other words, is it ethos? Is it pathos? Is it logos? Is it a combination of those three? And is there any logical fallacy? In other words, popular belief or a belief shared by a number of people. How does the author create this appeal? Devices he or she may use are diction, syntax, figurative language, imagery, repetition, hyperbole, or many other things. What is the effect of this rhetorical device on the audience? Does it create tone? Does it create imagery? Does it create an emotion? Roosevelt states, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. In this statement, he invokes strength and inspires a feeling of courage. He uses this paradox to establish an uplifting tone and encourage the American people to recognize their strength as a unified nation. Conversely, that means the opposite, the political cartoon alludes to FDR's famous inspirational words in contrast with Trump's divisive rhetoric in order to illustrate the latter's use of fear to divide a nation. And here's the cartoon. Roosevelt says, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And here is the next cartoon. Fear itself. All of these things that Trump has said. Instigate fear. Logos, comparing FDR's famous unifying speech with Trump's fear-inciting, divisive rhetoric. Allusion, using FDR's famous inspirational words. Comparison. The only thing we have to fear, and then fear. The author uses syntactical devices to create a logical argument. For example, he explains, something in quotes. This comparison illustrates blank. In addition. And here is a list of syntactical devices and their purpose. Parallelism is used to create logical argument. Comparison and contrast can illustrate a truth and logic. Paradox can be used to establish a truth or tone. Long description can create imagery. Being short and direct can present a fact and logic. Diction, word choice, purpose, repetition is a diction, style, or word choice that emphasizes points and can create urgency. Diction using a strong word can create imagery and emotion. Connotation can show differences subtly.